Welcome to the Pitchworks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchworks podcast.
Why is it so hard to reach out to that person? Why is it so hard to reach out to everybody today? Why is user acquisition so difficult? I mean, I think some people put give people in sales a bad rap.
I have a treat for you. So, Gerald Fong, the CEO of Elucify, wants to give you free sales leads, and it's not even halfway kidding. I'm serious. I'm totally serious. This young man, he's 22 years old, has a startup based on the idea of giving away sales leads. I have a feeling you're going to be interested. So that's our interview for the week. As per usual, because we are a young program struggling to make good out here in the world, I'm going to ask you for star ratings in iTunes or Google Play. I'd like some review type feedback while you're in there. Let us know what you like and don't like about the program so that we can help you to reach your goals at work. And if it's not too much trouble, I'd also like you to check out our website at pitchworks.com. That's pitchwerks.com. Check out this interview, Gerald Fong with Elucify at getelucify.com. Gerald, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Let's get the basics on your situation out of the way. So as I understand it, you are in California. What town are you in?
We're based in San Francisco.
Oh yeah? How's the rent?
Mm-hmm. It's high. We're living in a nicer neighborhood, like in a neighborhood that's outside of the main downtown area. So we're saving a lot of money by not being in the heart of the city. But it's been good.
I've heard from a lot of people it's really difficult to pay for your apartment when you're trying to get started out there. But San Francisco is a great place to start a business from everything that I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think if you're living in downtown, the rents can get as expensive as like $2,000 a month for like your own bedroom, which is just insane. But yeah, there's better places when you're a little bit outside the main area. But there's a lot of good people there.
There are. There's a ton of talent there, and having access to those hubs, we're trying to build one here in Pittsburgh like that, where all the people that you want are going to be close by, so that you can do more face to face, and you have access to some of those companies that you can either partner with or they can be your customers.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been there now?
So we've been in SF for around like 7 or 8 months. It's kind of like a short break from before when I was in SF again as well. We were basically in Mountain View for 3 months in between, but besides that, we've mainly been in San Francisco.
So when you were getting set up, was that a like a no-brainer? We have to be in San Francisco?
No, we actually had a little bit of a debate on that. I think the biggest thing for us was like this balance between, I think money was actually the big factor because we knew that we would have to get funding in order to live in San Francisco, or at least more funding at the time. So we were actually considering other places like, it sounds ridiculous to even talk about it today, but at the time we were like thinking about like Fremont or even Berkeley because I went to school there,
right.
Which is a pretty good place as well. But in the end, we ended up picking SF just because we did get the money that we wanted, and it just seemed like it would make us happier in a lot of ways. Our friends are here, and just a lot of talent is here, a lot of smart people are here, all the things that long term are really important for us to all here.
Now, who is invested in your company at this point?
So one of our main investors is Y Combinator. Have you heard of them before, or have you?
I may have heard of them once or twice. Yes.
Yeah, so Y Combinator, they're one of the top incubators. I guess they have a pretty strong reputation in Silicon Valley, kind of like the Harvard of incubators sort of thing. They've previously funded companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, a lot of the winners. I think the Pinterest founder originally went through Y Combinator as well. So they're one of our main investors, and we also have a couple of other angels and executives from companies like Twitter, Facebook, SAP, Dropbox, and other businesses as well.
So yeah, actually, on our first episode, we had Jim Gibbs from Meter Feeder. That was a few weeks ago. And Jim, kind of told us a little bit about the Y Combinator experience. What was it like for you coming through that?
It was really good. It's just, you just learn so much. I think that the biggest thing, I think probably the best way I could describe it is that it's kind of the experience that will make you feel like you're no longer being held back by things like connections or money or anything like that. Really, it all comes down to, are you able to make something that people truly love? Because they really take everything else out of the picture. Like, if you want to get an introduction to this certain person, you can do that. If you want to talk to this investor, if you want to do anything, they can really give you access to all of it. So it's kind of like, they kind of just make you think as big as you can and go after the biggest thing possible. They would always ask you a question like, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous for somebody to ask you this, but then they'll ask you a question like, okay, how are you going to become like a $10 billion company? It is very odd to normally have that in a normal conversation, but it's very normal. The culture that they bring is one that's just very ambitious and makes you think big to kind of make a difference.
I think sometimes people are a little bit discouraged to jump after their dreams, or they don't even necessarily have to be big dreams and goals. Sometimes I think they are plagued by a fear of loss more than they are the motivation of gain, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what makes you different?
Yeah. This is actually really interesting. I think recently the president of YC, of Y Combinator, he was giving this talk and he was being interviewed, and I think somebody actually asked him a pretty similar question. His answer resonated with me a lot. This might be just fairly similar to that. It's basically around, I guess it all comes down to, instead of viewing things or life as just like, okay, I guess the question is, what do you have to lose and what do you have to gain? I guess just like putting them side by side. Because like, let's just say you're previously a software engineer, or you're somebody who's very good on the business side, and you leave and you go do this entrepreneurial thing. The worst case scenario is that you'll probably lose some sleep. You might miss out on 1 to 2 years of salary or 3 years of salary, depending on how it goes. But other than that, you'll probably never regret it. You'll probably say like, great that I did it, and you'll probably learn so much more than you could have on the job. So when you actually compare the loss and the gain, one can say that that loss could actually be worth it. It's like going to business school, or it's like doing something like that, where, if you just compare the two, it could actually be worth it. I think for a lot of people, there's kind of this sticker shock when you tell them, oh, you're not going to get salary for 2 years, because you think about that, that amount of money or that amount of stress. But if you compare all the factors around it, it's actually quite a different decision then.
It's a well-known cognitive bias that people are more afraid of loss than they are motivated by gain.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know that there's necessarily any surprise in that. To your point, though, I'm not sure everyone that I've spoken to on these subjects necessarily understands how much more gain is potentially out there waiting for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you were asked the question, how are you going to become a $10 billion company? You were asked that during the Y Combinator process?
Yeah, basically. I mean, their question is, how are you going to be the next Google or Apple? That's sort of the question they're always trying to answer.
Well, yeah.
And it helps you answer. Exactly.
And I don't know that you necessarily need to become a $10 billion company. I'm sure 9 would be fine.
Yeah, 9 would be fine too.
Like what you're hearing? Want more? Join Pitchworks Premium and dig deeper with our interactive weekly webinars and the uncut version of every interview. Register at pitchworks.com.
So what are you going to pitch us on today?
So today I'm going to pitch you on our product, which is Elucify. I'm not sure if any of you listeners have heard of it before, but it's basically a shared contact database. It's a cooperative. So basically, everybody who signs up contributes their business contact to it, and in exchange, you get access to this huge database of contacts that you can use for sales leads or business development or anything else that you want. The moment you sign up, you can start getting 100 free leads every week from that point on. It seems like there's very big demand for what we're doing. The biggest thing that we're focused on right now is really just making the product better and better and better. You probably had a chance to try it already. It's still in the beta stages, and it takes time to make an amazing product. And that's really what we're doubling down on right now.
I did try the product. I worked with Amir on it in the background because I didn't fully understand how you were able to deliver a free leads product. So I definitely did. Honestly, I mean, I have a responsibility to the listener that I can't just throw whatever out at them and they just should accept that that's a good guess and that's the end of it. So I definitely did want to kick the tires and see. It wasn't complicated at all. There were, I would say, there were a lot of different things where you can see that the product is getting ready to grow into a greater degree of granularity, right? I can see that you're building a structure so that it doesn't feel like there's giant empty spaces where some categories that are just underrepresented right now would go. It seems as though you're adding them, as needed, as you determine that, you need further speciation of this category or that category. But it was very straightforward, very easy. I like the reminders that my credits are going to expire. I've been getting those for a few weeks now since I did the test. And I would say you're pointed in the right direction. User acquisition is always a challenge, though. I'm sure you've talked to other people about that.
No, yes, most definitely. It will be something we'll really be doubling down on later.
So when you deliver the pitch, what kind of results do you get? Are you doing it? Well, I back up on that. Before you even try to answer that, let's start with this. How often have you delivered it face-to-face with someone that might legitimately sign up?
That's actually a very good question. It's actually quite rare now. Because a lot of our messaging is mainly marketing. It's mainly through social media channels, it's through referrals, it's through emails, everything really but face-to-face. I think usually face-to-face is usually when I'm talking to people like investors or people who are already using our product, because we do user interviews a lot, and that can oftentimes be face-to-face. But in person, it's actually been a little bit fewer. Usually we're more describing like how does our business work, how does our company work, and kind of what is our vision and what are we aiming for. We're iterating a lot on it. I think a lot of how as a business, I think we are very different because I think you pointed this out very clearly. Most people, they hear our business model, they hear what we do, and they think that there's a catch. And I guess part of it, like if a person's very cynical, they could view it as a catch of like, oh, you have to share your business contacts in order to use Elucify. But that's also the beauty of our product. The strength of our product is that everybody's working together and collaborating and sharing the business contacts together. So you can create a very interesting, unique, and compelling database that's not really out there. And that's kind of the nuance that we're always trying to hone and iterate on to get that point across. Because some people get honestly a little touchy when they hear like, oh, I have to share my business contacts. But that's just what we do, and I think that's what we think can create a better product and a better end result for everybody.
Let's walk people through it very, very quickly. When they enter their business contacts, what are the various choices available to them to do that? So how is it just a CSV file? Is it just a direct connection to their email provider? I think people are probably going to want to protect a few of their business contacts is why I ask. So maybe you could kind of help them to understand that.
Yes. So how it works, and we're constantly building new things to make it better and better, but the current model is that you would just sign up, connect your email, and we'll basically just automatically connect and share the business contacts that you have in your email. We make sure to not grab things that are like Gmails or Yahoos or things of which could be personal. Like we don't want your grandmother's email in our system or anything like that. So we make sure to only get business contacts. Down the line, we might have features where you can opt out specific contacts you don't want to share if there's that very touchy investor or somebody that you don't want ever shared. But that's basically what we're doing.
Okay. That, I hear you telling me, well, what's the catch? I can imagine that that's the objection that people start with, especially when you're talking about these business contacts and this information of how to reach potential clients, potential investors, people that they may want to keep to themselves. So tell me what you're ultimately trying to build. Yeah,
I think what we're ultimately trying to build, it's the way I think about it is kind of an odd analogy, but we're just trying to build roads.
You're building roads.
Let everybody, Yeah, build roads. Like, why is it that getting in contact with that person is so hard today? Like,
Okay.
let's just say there is that investor. And believe it or not, these investors do check their email. Why is it so hard to reach out to that person? Why is it so hard to reach out to everybody today? Why is, user acquisition so difficult? I mean, I think some people put give people in sales a bad rap because of car salesmen and all those people. But at the end of the day, it's just getting your product to the people who want it, who need it, who will benefit from it. And our goal is to take this entire process and use what we think is just really interesting and intelligent engineering to tackle it in a very different way. And that's basically our what we want to do.
I would say, to answer your question, why is it so difficult? I think that the world used to be less accountable, and maybe it's still not accountable enough. But the idea of a show like ours, where we stress doing things professionally and ethically and those kinds of things, I'm not 100% sure that we would have found an audience, say, 30 years ago. I think that sales managers and owners and some other people, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anyone's character, but there was a certain sort of let's apply a little bit more pressure and they'll stick up for themselves kind of a mentality, right? But not everyone would stick up for themselves, or not everyone felt like having a fight, when someone stopped at the door or telephoned in. And what we kind of developed maybe was defense mechanisms where in order to keep someone from applying pressure, not a pitch, pressure, two completely different things. They set up a defense mechanism that said, I don't want you to be able to reach me, and that's very uncomfortable for me. I don't know. Whether or not that needs to necessarily exist in the world of email, I will leave to the experts. And honestly, I think the experts in this case will be, the market responses to the Constant Contacts and MailChimp type providers. The market responses to yourselves and to LinkedIn. I think this is still evolving, and the defense mechanisms are evolving too. But I think it's a lot harder to apply pressure than it was before, especially in the days where someone would show up at your home and, well, when is your husband going to be home? And, sort of like this implied, you need to be a good host to me, and I'm going to ask pressury questions. I just think we live in a different world right now, and I think you're probably trying to bring things back to where they would make sense. So it's an interesting product.
That's a really good point. No, that's a really good point.
There's an equilibrium that we kind of haven't gotten back to because it doesn't fit with our old habits, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So how did you end up planting your flag in this particular hill?
Yeah. Well, it kind of it ran into it was like two things. One was just scratching my own itch, my personal itch. At one point, I was running an engineering consulting firm. Years past now, just 1 or 2 years ago, and at the time, we just had so much trouble getting into contact with these different leaders in engineering that we wanted to talk to, and we ended up getting a lot of calls once we found the information and reached out to them. It was really they really appreciated it. We're in contact with them until today, and these were all people we reached out cold. And the biggest question we ran into was, okay, why is it so difficult for us to do this? And that's more of like on an individual level, we ran into this. And my colleague who was at the time here, he was working at Dropbox, and he was friends with a lot of sales reps selling at many tech companies. We began to realize that they were all running through this as well. So that's basically what got us onto this problem.
I'm always interested when someone with an education finds their way into sales, and I don't mean to make that sound as horrible as I think I made it just sound, but no. So you did go to Berkeley, and remind me what you studied there.
I studied electrical engineering and computer science.
So here you are, and you're developing tools which, by and large, are going to be used by people in sales and marketing and those kinds of things. And
that's right. Yep.
And I'm very interested in what the attraction was to serving that group. I hear what you're saying as far as you had a problem and you solved that problem.
They needed something the most, or just of all the problems that we were seeing people having, it just seemed like I don't know. It didn't really excite me to build another Uber for this or Uber for that. It seemed like people were having a real problem, and I guess that's kind of what motivated us. It was okay, maybe this. So at one point, we were showing an initial like proof of concept to a group of I think like 5 people, and oh my gosh, like we showed it to them, and their reaction was, I don't know if I can say this. They basically just looked at it and said, "Shut the fuck up." Like that was literally what they said to me. And I was
right.
like, what? Like, why? Like I was like, he's like, dude, and of course it was a proof of concept at the time. We're like, okay, if we could do this, what would you think? And they're like, can we buy your company? Like that was like their reaction. They're just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And that's kind of what began, like that sort of like feeling of like, oh, I can really help these people. These people would really want this. Like this is valuable. Like that kind of, that's what drove me at the end of the day. I guess more so than like, okay, which people in the world do I want to help the most? It's more of like who can I help the most?
So when you started pitching it, and I have to believe that the meeting you just described was fairly early on. Were you basically using the same pitch, or was it a different form at that point?
It was a different form. It was the product. The product has been evolving a lot, but it was back then. It was more tied to the enterprise experience, which is something that we'll be going back to a lot later on. But the pitch then was basically, imagine if there was this button that you can click and fix all of the bad data in your CRM. So as a sales rep, you can just stop thinking about data day to day.
Right. No, and speaking personally, having helped with dozens at this point of CRM implementations, that's always the problem. The garbage in, garbage out problem has always been a problem.
Exactly.
So I can understand how someone would have been interested in at least having that initial conversation with you about making it better. But ultimately, if I'm hearing you right, you realize that the problem wasn't the CRM data. The problem was the sales themselves. You started off pitching like a cleanup of CRM, and you were associated with don't you hate cleaning up CRM data? And as a problem, honestly, if you've done CRM data entry, and God knows I have, cleaning up CRM data is very close to my least favorite task on earth. But is that enough necessarily to motivate a change in behavior? I'm sure you've learned through this experience, changing human behavior is very difficult. So maybe pulling your focus out a little bit, taking a wider view, you said, we're not necessarily trying to clean up their CRM so much as we are trying to make it easier for them to make sales. So you dropped the CRM data cleanup part out of your pitch. The relationship that Elucify, and we should have pointed this out already, for those of members of our audience that are doing this maybe at their desk or whatever, the URL is getelucify. So it's getelucify.com. So when you're building, say, like an email marketing, like a blast, a mass email, do we trip over terms of use and those kinds of questions at that point? Are there rules about using the emails that we get out of Elucify?
No, there are no additional rules. I think it's just to follow the CAN Spam Act. So there are things that you should always be adding to certain emails. For example, unsubscribe link, not to have any sort of spammy headers or anything like that. Other than that, there's no additional regulations that we put on anything. Okay,
so it is pretty straightforward. I can, and I did, set up an Elucify account and literally get my leads right away after I, confirm my account and whatnot. When I find my information, in there, is there a way to get it out?
That will be something that we will be building. There will be a way to opt out if you'd like to not have or not be seen or reached out to by anybody provided by Elucify. We don't have that right now just because we haven't gotten very many requests in our system, but we will eventually be supporting that.
I want to find out how people divide up labor in a startup. So if you wouldn't mind, sort of introduce us virtually to the people that are on your team, and then tell us what they brought to the party when you guys all first got together.
Yeah. So the other two that are on our team, one of them is Naveen Krishnamurthy. He's very, very smart, brilliant engineer from Stanford. had some very good experience working in massive data sets and machine learning and a lot of other different things as well. He brings a lot of different. It's hard to even describe what like exactly, but it's just so much.
He's a startup founder. He's supposed to have 37 different jobs.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Him and I do all the engineering because he also has he studies computer science at Stanford. I studied computer science at UC Berkeley, and our third co-founder, his name is Mahir Deo. He went to high school, college, and also worked at Dropbox with me. So we go way back, and he does all the business side. So things related with marketing, with sales, and he did a lot of sales himself when he was at Dropbox and other companies as well. So a lot of what a lot of the problems we're trying to solve are things of which he's experienced a lot of, and he has a lot of people that he's constantly talking to make sure we're building the best product possible. But yeah, he's often incredibly hardworking. If you give him any task, he'll always build. I mean, he's just. It's a great team we have, but it's a good balance of 2 people on the engineering side and 1 person on the business side.
So what was the genesis of the team? What was the thing that said the 3 of us should work together?
Yeah, so the beginning has started with Nadine and I. We were working on a lot of different products, a lot of different ideas that we were having. At the time, we were kind of just exploring. But later on, when we were talking to Mahir, we realized how big of a problem this was, and that we wanted to enter this market, this space. We brought Mahir on board, and then from then on, it was the 3 of us. All
right. Gerald Fong, GetElucify.com. Gerald, real quick, if somebody wants to reach out to you or your co-founders and ask a question or provide some feedback, what's the easiest way? Do you have a social media account you want to use?
Probably you just send me an email. I check that a lot. So just send an email to Gerald@GetElucify.com.
There it is. The man is eating his own dog food. Folks, this is Gerald Fong. Gerald, I can't tell you how much we appreciate having you on, and I'm telling you right now, there are going to be a lot of people very happy to use your product. I've kicked the tires myself. There is no catch. I've gotten my free leads. Thank you so much for being a guest here on the Pitchworks podcast.
My pleasure.
All right, it's very difficult for me to do an interview like this where someone is giving away something as useful as Elucify is in this situation. They want to give you these free sales leads. There doesn't appear to be any sort of downside or catch to it at this point. It is a young company continuing to develop some of the finer tools. As Gerald said, there's going to be a utility to remove yourself from it. You're still going to have to watch your compliance with the Can Spam Act. But that is a tremendous value that he is offering the world, and it's got the imprimatur of Y Combinator behind it. There's something interesting happening out there in San Francisco. Sales is in vogue, and Gerald is working with his 2 co-founders, to make it that much better. I'm interested in your feedback. Make sure you hit us up on social. I really want to hear what your experiences are, how much you like it, don't like it. And as you noted at the end there, Gerald even provided his own email so that you can send that same feedback to him if you like. But I try to do the due diligence. I try to make sure you're going to be happy with the brands that show up here on the Pitchworks podcast. So tell me what you like, don't like about Elucify. I am interested to hear what you have to say. I'll catch up with you in about a week for our next episode. Thanks for listening.
The Pitchworks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchworks.com, pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.